Well, we're here to bring you week 5, and it's hard to believe, but we're already at the midway point of the season. Obviously, we had some decent games here in the NUIC this past week. Um, Big notables obviously was Du-Pec getting their win over Orangeville 10-0. EPC playing a close game with Milledgeville where EPC prevailed 20-12. And then on the other hand, you had some big games that you could have expected. Lena Winslow putting the hammer down on Dakota 46-14. By the way, that's Lena Winslow's 4th straight running clock game to start the season. Forreston beat AFC 48-8. Forreston has won by running clock every week except that week 1 against Dakota. And then Aquin with a big win over East Dubuque 39-7. And a game that I thought would actually be a little bit closer than it was Stockton's win over Galena, where Stockton prevailed 26-0. Really thought that Galena would give a little bit more to Stockton as far as a closer played game.
Especially after the matchup we saw against Orangeville.
Right. Well, and you talk about Galena's matchup with Forreston even. You had Forreston people stating that, Galena played really well despite the 50-9 Forreston victory. And then even looking back in week 1, when Galena had West Carroll on the ropes, probably should have won that game, ended up losing it. But, here against Stockton just ran the ball at will on them. So, it is what it is at this point in the season. Obviously, going into week 5, we're going to see a couple teams most likely reach that playoff clinching number 5 win, as Lena Winslow, Forreston, and Aquin all remain undefeated at 4-0. This week, they get win number 5. They become playoff eligible. Obviously, we have 4 teams as well. If they lose this week, they're definitely eliminated from any type of playoff talk, and that's Milledgeville, Amboy, AFC, and Galena, as all 4 of those teams are 0-4. I'm taking a look at some big games around the state. We'll start in Class 1A. Central A&M, no surprise here, as they beat Warrensburg-Latham 42-14. Somewhat of a surprise, but not really. Aurora Christian lost to Riverside Brookfield 25-23. Riverside Brookfield is a 6A or 7A school, so it's not a big surprise, but AC did beat Brookfield last year. And now AC goes into 3 straight weeks where they're playing Bishop McNamara, Immaculate Conception, and Wheaton St. Francis. So all eyes are going to be on Aurora Christian. Granted, they're probably most likely going to lose those 3 games, but they cannot afford to lose any more games, so they're going to be out of the playoff picture. Athens had a big win over Riverton, 72-6. Tuscola lost to St. Teresa, 28-12. Obviously, St. Teresa's ranked in the Class 2A poll. In our poll, they're ranked at number 5, and they're right around that same number in the AP poll as well. Camp Point Central stays undefeated as they beat Route 55-6. And a big game, too, is Chicago Hope pulled out a 7-6 win over Bishop Diego, California. That game actually got moved to Saturday because they had power failure in Santa Monica where they were at. Power failure caused them to move the game from 7:30 to the following afternoon, where they were still having some issues with scoreboard and play clock, but they pull out the victory 7-6. Arcola continues on their roll with beating Arthur Lovington 36-7, and then Princeville and Anawan and Weathersfield also remain undefeated on the season.
So going into Class 2A, there were a lot of upsets. I mean, GCMS, they were beat by number 6 Fieldcrest.
Yeah.
How many straight games was that?
That was 31 straight wins that GCMS had, and obviously Fieldcrest put that to an end.
So, not only did GCMS lose, Maroa Forsyth also lost.
Yes, they did. granted, it was to the number 1 ranked team in Class 3A, Williamsville. But Moreau Forsyth did beat Williamsville last year. Prior to that, Williamsville got the better of Moreau Forsyth the previous 2 years. So if you take a four-look glance, Williamsville has won 3 of 4, but that score 43-41. Obviously, it was a shootout. Moreau Forsyth had their opportunities. They came up short, but Coach Coons got his bullets to get ahead in the victory column. And Williamsville is definitely one of those teams. They're one of 3 teams that people are really looking at for the 3A title game this year, which should be a lot of fun because Williamsville is also one of those teams on the board that could go north or south. Hopefully they go south because it would really be bad to see Byron, Williamsville, and Wilmington all in the north bracket come 3A playoff time. Other big games?
As I say, Clifton Central remains undefeated. They won 50-24 over Dwight. St. Teresa won 20-12 over number 6 Tuscola. Fieldcrest beat GCMS. Bismarck Henning is still undefeated. They won 55-6 over Georgetown Ridge Farm. Pana undefeated. Nashville undefeated. Knoxville undefeated. And another game that's kind of, prevalent in our area, Rockford Lutheran. They beat Bago 28-13 this week.
And so they improved to 3-1. So obviously they're being looked at as they fall into Class 2A this year on a waiver. Another big one too is Sterling Newman is still undefeated 4-0 after they beat Bureau Valley 50-7.
Did I completely not even read that?
You did. You missed them.
Rookie mistake.
It's all right. It's all good.
I was thinking about it too, and I'm like, man, Sterling Newman, they're the ones that I keep picking. They're always number 1 in my rankings.
Right.
So I'm sorry, guys. That's why he's the professional.
I wouldn't go that far. Anyhow, as you can see, a lot of big things going on across the state. Obviously, after week 5, the playoff outlook will start to really come into play. We'll start breaking that down as we get through week 5. I know some people are already putting out playoff pictures already. In my opinion, it's too early to tell. You got teams, for instance, Dakota 1-3. They're very much still in the playoff picture, but if you were to do a rundown of what Dakota is right now, they would probably be out of most people's playoff picture at this point.
Yeah, their schedule is definitely front-loaded.
Oh, very front-loaded, and that doesn't get any easier as they get EPC this week.
And then, yeah.
So, obviously, there's some good games coming forward in the NUIC this week, that being one of them. Another one is East Dubuque going to Orangeville on Saturday afternoon. Both of those teams are going to be 2-2, and we'll get into that when we break down that game as well. One that a lot of fans are really looking at, although it probably won't fare out very well, but Stockton and Lena Winslow renew their rivalry in Stockton this week. Stockton comes in with a 3-1 record, Lena Winslow with a 4-0 record. However, if you want to know my personal opinion on that game, I feel Lena Winslow wins that big, but we'll break down the game anyway. I do like what Coach Snyder has going on with Stockton this year. He's got a lot of running backs that he's being able to give the ball to. They're running many different schemes and formations to help bring a different look to the Blackhawks.
Hey, why don't we save that for the people?
Yes, we will save that for the people. Anyway, we'll break down each of our 7 games right now. Our crossover game this week takes us to Dakota, where the Indians come in with a 1-3 record, and they will play host to the EPC Wildcats, who are 2-2. Last week, EPC snuck out a 20-12 win over Milledgeville, where Dakota lost big to Lena Winslow 46-14. Last year, these two teams played in Week 8. Obviously, at that time, EPC was undefeated, ranked high in Class 2A. Dakota obviously came in. I don't remember if they were state ranked at that time, but I know that they were receiving votes, so they were within the state ranked talks anyhow. But EPC won that game 21-10. Obviously, these two teams match up very well with each other over the last 3-4 seasons. it's going to be a pretty good game, I think, again this year as well.
No, it should really be a great game. I was really surprised to see that EPC held Milledgeville last week to under 200 yards of offense. And obviously, you know, I think you touched on it earlier, like it was a tight game. I mean, it was 14-0 in the first quarter.
Correct.
And then Milledgeville
was able to get some big plays that actually kept them in the game. They made it. They brought it to a 14-12 game at one point, not being able to convert their extra points. But EPC was able to persevere on getting another touchdown. And then Braden Preston once again comes up big. Not only did he have a big touchdown reception in the game to help propel EPC, he had a big interception that stopped the Milledgeville drive to seal the victory for the Wildcats as well. So, I mean, granted his stats weren't all right there, but his play over the last couple weeks, you keep hearing his name come up with a big kick return, a big reception, a big interception. So Braden Preston, even though this is his first year playing varsity football, he's doing great things for the Wildcats, both offensively, defensively, and on special teams, which is exactly what EPC needs to continue to do, continue to build upon. And I think Coach McNutt's doing a good job of making sure that the Wildcats are doing what they need to do. Granted, this game's a huge game for them. And it's a big game for Dakota just as well. If Dakota were to win, both these two teams sit at 2-3. Granted, it kind of mars their playoff picture, but they're still very much in that playoff picture nonetheless. Obviously, EPC still has to play Aquin, which is going to come in week 6, so the week after this game. And then they finish out with AFC, Forreston, and West Carroll. I'm sorry, that's Aquin's.
Oh.
Amboy, I was looking at Aquin's schedule. EPC will finish out Amboy, AFC, and then Forreston in week 9.
It's like, can I not read?
So, with that being said, you know, EPC can afford to sit at 2-3. Dakota, on the other hand, if they lose this game at 1-4, they're forced to win out against East Dubuque, Galena, Orangeville, and Stockton. East Dubuque has been a tough game for Dakota the last 2 years. Galena was a tough game for Dakota 2 years ago. Orangeville and Stockton are new to Dakota's schedule, although Dakota did crush Stockton in round 1 last year. At home, in Dakota, I like Dakota in this game.
I'm going to have to agree with you.
First game takes us to Stockton, where the Blackhawks come in with a 3-1 record, and they are going to play host to Lena Winslow, who comes in with a perfect 4-0 record. Last week, Lena Winslow won big against Dakota, as we previously mentioned, 46-14, where Stockton beat Galena 26-0, and that was kind of a surprise score there. I really thought that Galena would have some items for Stockton.
Couple answers, yeah.
Right. I mean, I thought that. Originally I picked Stockton to win that game, but I thought that was a game. If you asked me at the beginning of the season, I thought Galena would win that game.
I know we touched on that in the first segment, that after the Orangeville-Galena game, the West Carroll-Galena game, like...
Yeah, I mean, they had something, but Stockton
there.
just took full control of Galena. Back to Lena Winslow-Stockton. This is a revival of a rivalry game from yesteryear. Their last meeting came in the 2014 playoffs, where Lena Winslow won 50-26 in the first round. That capped off 3 straight playoff games against each other, where Lena Winslow was 2-1 against the Blackhawks. Their only loss coming in the 2012 quarterfinals. However, looking at this game, Lena Winslow clearly ranked number 2 in the state, getting all eyes on them from around the state. I know Coach Aaron doesn't like that, But it's the truth of the matter, the truth of the situation. Galena Winslow is seen as the team to beat in Class 1A, despite being ranked behind Forreston, defending state champs. Likewise, again, you can take a look at many different facets of that. Galena Winslow and Forreston have combined for 5 of the last 6 state titles in Class 1A. So when you have that going for you, you're going to have people watching from afar. In this game, I really like what Coach Snyder has done with the Blackhawks. To me, at this point in the season, I figured Stockton would be sitting at 2-2. Like I stated, originally, if you would have asked me what the game score of Galena-Stockton was at the beginning of the year, I would have told you Galena would have won. But they're sitting at 3-1 now. They have Galena Winslow, Du-Pec, Orangeville, East Dubuque, and Dakota left on their schedule. They have a heavy load in front of them. Obviously, Galena Winslow is going to be one of those games this week that I will sit here and tell you that I have Galena Winslow winning this game big, like I stated in our introduction. No shame in that. That's just where I feel. I mean, Galena Winslow has won 4 straight games to start the season, all 4 of them by running clocks. I think it continues this week. Likewise, you take a look at Stockton moving forward. Du-Pec is off to a 3-1 start as well. Orangeville's at 2-2. East Dubuque's at 2-2. Those two teams will play against each other. Dakota at 1-3, but Dakota sitting at 1-3. Obviously, that's a team that you still want to be prepared for, especially in Stockton's sake. Dakota ruled Stockton last year in Stockton the first round of the playoffs on their way to a quarterfinal run. But Stockton is going to have to sneak out 2 wins, and in order to do that, it's going to have to come in week 6 through 10. They're going to have to pull off 2 wins because after this week, sitting at 3-2, there's just not a whole lot that they can do, and that's tough competition. The 4 teams they have remaining on schedule are going to give them games. They're going to be interesting games, and that's what the fun part of this football season is a lot of that parity that we keep talking about. But Galena Winslow big in this one.
Make it 2.
Our other North feature takes us to Durand, where Du-Pec will play host to Galena. Galena comes in with an 0-4 record. Du-Pec comes in with a 3-1 record. Last week, Galena lost to Stockton 26-0, as we previously mentioned, whereas Du-Pec beat Orangeville 10-0. If you take a look at this game over the last 2 years, last year Du-Pec won this game in Week 9 14-0. The year before that, Du-Pec won this game also in Week 9 7-0 for the program's very first win under their co-op. Obviously this year, Du-Pec coming off to a 3-1 start. The Rivermen have pretty much rewritten where they're going. Their trajectory is going upward, exactly where we thought that they would be going. Thanks to our Du-Pec superfan on Twitter. He's loving the fact that Du-Pec is 3-1. I don't know who you are, but your stuff is funny. Obviously, you're starting to stir the pot a little bit. You might want to tone it down just a tad. Anyway, the Rivermen are doing things the right way. And they're doing a lot of things to get the W. The one thing that stood in the way was being able to stop the run game. They had troubles with that against Dakota. This week against Orangeville, obviously they were able to slow the Broncos down significantly.
Yeah, we looked at just the total yards. I mean, Orangeville had 213 for the night, and Du-Pec had 216. I mean, that's about as evenly matched as it gets.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a great game overall, and if you like defensive battles, it was a great game, I should
I was
say.
going to say, we heard quite a few people say it was boring, but it was like, no, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a very intriguing matchup. That's why we were at that game. I also found it to be a very good game, but I'm also one of those guys that loves defense. I want to see hard hits. I want to see tough stops. And in that game, Du-Pec came up with a huge stop on Orangeville at the 2-yard line where it was 4th and 2 from the 2. Orangeville getting ready to punch it in for a touchdown. They bobbled the snap or had something happen with the snap where Doyle fumbled the ball. Either it was on the snap or on the transition trying to get the handoff off. Anyway, Cody Richardson was able to come in, make the stop, turn the ball over on downs, and that was huge for Du-Pec at that time because they had just gone up 10-0 with 9:30 left in the third quarter, and Orangeville literally took an 8-minute drive to get down to that 2-yard line, in which, had they punched that in, it could be 10-6, 10-7, 10-8, depending on what style Orangeville chose for their extra point and if it was good or not. But either way, it gets them right back in the game. And if you take a look at the fourth quarter of that game, Orangeville did a lot in that game in the fourth quarter. They had many opportunities. They were deep within Du-Pec territory. They started every drive but one in Du-Pec territory. And then they also had the key interception at the 2-yard line that Trayvon Stifter was able to pick off Doyle's pass. Galena, on the other hand, tough go of it. I was really surprised that they didn't put it together against Stockton. I'm really surprised that they didn't score any points. I'm not sure if Henry Anderson got hurt in that game. It looked like Ethan Heffel had come in that game as well. Either way, really surprised that Galena didn't get that win. Du-Pec has another homecoming game this week in Durand. And, right now they're the biggest surprise in the NUIC. And I got the Rivermen.
Should I mix it up this week? Just kidding. I also like the Rivermen.
We move back to Savannah, where West Carroll comes in with a 3-1 record, and they get ready to play AFC, who will come into the game at 0-4. Last week, AFC lost 48-8 to Forreston, where West Carroll beat Amboy 36-7. And the last time these two teams met came back in 2012 in Week 2, where West Carroll won that game 30-7. Taking a look at some things that AFC has done thus far in the season, it has looked pretty bleak. Coach Winterland has a lot of experience that is back. The only problem is that he has a lot of he does not have a lot of numbers for depth to help them become even better than what they are. And I don't mean that in a bad way by any stretch of the imagination. The only problem is that without the numbers and without the depth, you don't get a good look at what you're going up against on a week-in, week-out basis. And when you're in the NUIC, you have a tough schedule every single week. Of which Coach Winterland knows that. I think that's why he likes being in the NUIC, because you get to see those type of teams. And with the reorganization of the NUIC layout,
North-South.
Yeah, you're starting to see some of these teams that they would not have normally seen back in the Northwest upstate type format. For instance, East Dubuque, Forreston, West Carroll, EPC, and Amboy. Here they have West Carroll, so obviously the last time they played each other was 2012, like we mentioned. West Carroll coming in at 3-1. You know, if you asked me at the start of the season, I would have told you that West Carroll was a team that could be on the brink of playoff contention. I believe I had them sitting with a 5-4 record going into the playoffs, making the playoffs at 5-4.
And I have 4-5.
And you know, here they are. They're sitting at 3-1. So they definitely have made their own path. A win here gets them to 4-1, and then they have Forreston, Milledgeville, Du-Pec, and Aquin to finish the season. So right now, West Carroll is in control of their own destiny. At 3-1, they need to pick up 3 wins. They have the ability to do so over the course of the next 5 weeks. Most likely, they only need 2 wins to get in based off of their crossover schedule. It could be tough at 5-4 right now, looking at it, because we don't have a true playoff point picture yet. Playing Galena, you would have expected them to get more playoff points out of Galena. Obviously, that could still happen. Dakota's only given them 1 playoff point thus far, but Du-Pec has given them 3 playoff points. We expect Dakota to win more games. Du-Pec will at least get to 6 wins, if not 7. Galena should be able to get at least a win, maybe 2 wins, over the course of the next 5 weeks. So 5-4 for West Carroll is going to be tough, but I do like the Thunder this week.
I also like the Thunder.
We move on to Conley Field in Freeport, where the Aquin Bulldogs will play host to Amboy. Aquin comes in with a 4-0 record. Amboy comes in with an 0-4 record. Last week, Amboy lost to West Carroll 36-7, where Aquin beat East Dubuque 39-7. The last time these 2 teams met were back in 2016 in Week 9 in Amboy's inaugural season in the NUIC, where Aquin won 48-17 on the way to an unexpected quarterfinal run for the Bulldogs at that time. A lot of people thought that that first meeting in 2016 would go in the way of Amboy, but Aquin had other plans. With a high, potent offense and good enough team surrounding them. And that was an Aquin team, too, that was very short on numbers. Only had 16 kids out that year. Very impressive what Aquin did back in 2016. This year, Amboy's the one that's short on numbers. Although they probably have the exact same people on the field that the Bulldogs do, because it's not an uncommon thing to see Aquin with 24, 25 kids on the sidelines, being that their average class size is like 24 kids to a class. So, you know, for Aquin to have a lot of numbers, they literally need every boy in the school to be on the football field. Aquin's 4-0 start has surprised some. Wins over Orangeville, Stockton, Milledgeville, and East Dubuque thus far. I think what has surprised some with their wins is the fact that they beat Orangeville. Stockton has had Aquin's number since 2011 in the regular season. But to say that it's a complete surprise that Aquin is 4-0, I would say it's not. Because even though they went 4-5 last year, you could see that this year was...
They had a lot to work with. I mean, I had Aquin, for my picks, I have Aquin going 7-2 for the season. I mean, I'm not the least bit surprised.
No.
I think Coach Kunder has done a lot with the program, and the boys are all... With Aquin, I feel every year, the boys want to be there. They want to suit up. Like you said, almost every boy has to go out. That's what they want to do.
And you're right. I mean, The play calling at Aquin has been excellent. They've done a lot to be able to win the games that they've needed to win. They've had some moments where they've had to persevere through some tough situations. You know,
I mean,
they had a 3-score lead against Orangeville. They had a 3-score lead against Stockton. They let those leads kind of dissipate, but they still won both those games by at least 2 or 3 scores.
Maybe they were just trying to make it interesting.
Maybe.
But,
or they got comfortable being up by that big. That's what I'm going to chalk it up to. So, you know, people have asked me, what about Aquin? Well, Aquin is at the point where they still need to learn how to win and stay on the gas pedal when up big. And Aquin's one of those teams that can be scary good. They have a lot of playmakers. They have a solid line. They have good defense. They just have not put a full game together yet that would rival what the upper echelon of Lena Winslow and Forreston are. Granted, they still have time to get there. They're not going to see Forreston until week 8. So that's still a little ways away. So for Aquin to be at a 4-0 start is surprising, but it's not at the same time.
Well, it's surprising in the sense that they've had a couple injuries just like key players, and you have someone just to fill the spot right behind them.
Yes, I mean...
And that's, to me, the only surprise.
Yeah, because we haven't seen a lot of Ethan Yount after week 1. He has not been back yet from that injury that he suffered, which surprises me. But Ty Stekel has definitely played the part and has stepped right in and filled that void. And can you imagine what Aquin will be like when Yount returns?
They're going to be that scary good you talked about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you get him back in the lineup. Now you have more than one option to get the ball to. You have Will Gus playing out of his mind to start the year so far.
I like how you say that, but I feel like that's just his mentality. I mean, he played out of his mind last year.
He did. I mean, he definitely played far beyond his years as a sophomore. But this year he's taken it to a whole nother level. Like, he's actually seeing the game.
He's got the experience behind him now after a year.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to see that progression. And
the growth.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and people are like, well, you know, Will Gus this, Will Gus that. Well, kid's a hell of an athlete. Yes, he's undersized, but he makes the big plays. And he's got a big arm.
We learned that it's yeah.
But, I don't know. I love what Aquin has going on. Obviously, Coach Blackburn has done a lot to bring the offensive and defensive lines to another level.
Oh, yeah.
And the entire coaching staff at Aquin has definitely turned around that mindset to play at a higher physical level than what they've had before. And it's showing. It's showing in the results. It's showing in their play. They just need to take that next step. And that next step is to learn how to win and stay on the hammer all game long. If they do that, they can make some noise in the playoffs this year. Which, at this point in the juncture, I expect them to. But, there's always a but. They still have to play EPC in week 6. We already mentioned they have to play Forreston in week 8, and they have West Carroll in week 9. So, they have 3 very tough games still in front of them, despite the records of some of these teams, that are going to put Aquin in a position to determine which direction they're going to go. Where are they going to finish? Where are they going to fall when the bracket breaks out? Some of that is going to play into how far Aquin will go come playoff time. Amboy, obviously, Coach Jones has had a lot of struggles this year. They're having a hard time getting the ball to Marcus Wynn. They have Preston Henkel at quarterback. he's done some good things for Amboy's offense. Obviously, with Austin Norman at running back, those three have really pretty much been the entire catalyst of the Clipper offense thus far, and it's just not playing out the way that Amboy had hoped it would. At the same token, battling the numbers and not having the depth that they have is also starting to take its toll on the Clippers. This week, though, I do like the Bulldogs. They're going to capture their second win against the Clippers.
I agree. And I'll see you at Carroll Field.
Our last South game of our feature takes us to Milledgeville, where the Missiles come in with an 0-4 record, and they will play host to Forreston as they come in with a 4-0 record. Last week, Forreston won this game, or beat AFC.
Like they didn't play last week.
No, they did not.
So, yes, Forreston beat AFC 48-8, and Milledgeville lost 20-12 to EPC.
Thank you.
I got you.
And that's what teammates are about. Last year, Forreston won this game. There, now we can say it. In the first round, or in the second round of the playoffs. Good Lord. Sorry. Forreston won this game 22-20 in the second round of the playoffs.
I take back calling you a professional. Earlier.
There you go. Exactly. Obviously, times have turned as far as what both these teams are. Forreston still very much exactly where they've been for the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Milledgeville, obviously, they've kind of fallen off from their 9-0 season and 10-1 finish from a year ago. It was kind of expected. Milledgeville had a high amount of seniors that were leading that team and that charge. And that was one of those teams where you saw that growth over 3 years. You know, they took Marquette to the brink of elimination. Then the following year, they got to the second round, but they got demolished by Lena Winslow. And then last year, they come out, they go undefeated, they give the state champs everything they have.
Oh, yeah.
Despite all the fact, you know, a lot of people had, ourselves included, had Forreston winning that game big.
I remember listening to that in the car because we had picked up a different game, and I remember just how insane that was.
Yeah, I mean, they did everything that they had to do. They changed their entire offense around in order to allow them to have the opportunity to play with Forreston, because through the first two possessions of that game, Forreston showed total domination.
All right, well, we know how that all ended. So let's go to this year, right?
We do. What my point is you can't overlook a team.
Oh, absolutely not.
And Milledgeville just played EPC 20-12 in a game that I felt
could have gone either way.
Nah, not really.
Okay, you didn't. I did.
No, I felt EPC would have won bigger than they did, honestly. But Milledgeville showed a lot of their heart in that game. They only had 200. They had less than 200 yards of offense. They were able to make some big plays to have the opportunity to be in that game at the end of the game, and they came back from being down 14-0 in the first quarter. So they had a lot of resiliency in that game. Obviously, Forreston did what Forreston does. They got up 48 points in the second quarter, shut it down, and away they went.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Forreston had 15 ball carriers last week. A couple weeks ago, they had, 14 ball carriers?
14.
Obviously, Forreston is not running anything up on people. They're showing exactly what they're showing exactly what their strength is.
I always think that's so critical. I think that's a critical part of Forreston's formula, that, you know, they have such strong starters, and then they're just bringing new people and new faces. I mean, they're getting them the experience, and they're getting them experience against oftentimes the other team's first string, second string. They're good players. So.
Well, and it all started a while back when Dubuque was still the head coach there, where they literally had a platoon, 3 running backs in, 3 on the side, flip flop.
Mhm. Yep.
And they're still going with that 6 running back mentality, even under Zick. And you saw it last year, you saw it the year before that, you're seeing it this year.
Anyway.
This year, Forreston.
Forreston.
Our game of the week takes us to Orangeville, where the Broncos come in with a 2-2 record. They will play host to East Dubuque, who also comes in with a 2-2 record. Last week, East Dubuque lost to Aquin 39-7. Orangeville lost to Du-Pec 10-0. Last year, these two teams met up in Week 8, where East Dubuque won 39-27. If you take a look back, this is actually their 5th straight meeting. And it probably is even longer than that, now that I think about it, because prior to 2015, East Dubuque was in the upstate side of the conference. Every year when East Dubuque flipped to the northwest side of the conference, East Dubuque always matched up with Orangeville. And that's probably where I'm sitting here thinking, man, they've played a lot over the last couple of years. Well, that's why. They meet up again now, this year, back into the same conference as they're in the north. Matching 2-2 records. Obviously, East Dubuque had a tough time with Aquin last week. Orangeville lost to Du-Pec 10-0. In that game, Garrett Rodeball was able to surpass the 3,000-yard mark for his career. So congratulations, Garrett, on that accomplishment. In the process, he surpassed former Dakota running backs Matt Koppinen and Evan Dornick on the NUIC career rushing list. So
he's with
some big names.
Yeah.
And he's getting his way up the list. And to be quite honest, he's less than 1,000 yards away now from hitting 4,000 yards. It would be awesome to see him reach that 4,000-yard mark, as we've stated earlier in the season. Long ways to go to get there. But it's exciting nonetheless. This game, East Dubuque has had some good things going for them. Zach Myers come in at quarterback this year to replace John Breitbach. He's been able to do some things athletically. East Dubuque has a very big line, like we've stated. They're formidable. They can get off the ball. Orangeville's line's not very big. They are strong. They are fast. And they can hit. I just feel in this game, East Dubuque needs to be able to spread the ball a little bit, throw the ball around. They need to be able to run the ball. Unfortunately, they had Brennan Smith come back good thing is they had Brennan Smith come back this week. Unfortunately, he re-injured the same shoulder they had previously. Not sure where his injury stands, if he'll be available for this game. Hopefully he does get back. You don't like seeing these guys get hurt. Orangeville, obviously, you got Rodeball, no doubt about that. Dalton Lowe was able to get some carries. Carter Kleckler's getting a lot of carries. You saw Orangeville go back to a traditional wing tee last week. They also were in a double wing. They were able to spread some things out as well with Jake Doyle at quarterback. But the Broncos need to be able to do things just a little bit differently. Obviously, you feed your horse when your horse is there, but sometimes you got to take the focus off the horse and get some other people in play. This game, though, I like Orangeville in this game. I feel this is going to be a good game for both teams. Both of these teams need this win in order to keep themselves in the playoff picture. Taking a look at East Dubuque's schedule moving forward after Orangeville, they still have to play Dakota, Du-Pec, Stockton, and Galena. Likewise, on the other side, Orangeville still has Lena Winslow, Stockton, Dakota, and then Milledgeville. In my what I feel Orangeville needs. They need to win this week. Week 6 is going to be tough with Galena Winslow. And then Stockton, Dakota, and Milledgeville. Orangeville, in my opinion, needs to get to 6-3, especially having AFC, Milledgeville, and Galena on the schedule. Looking at it right now, those 3 teams have 0 wins. And if you look at the playoff point picture in the past, you know, you're looking at 36, 37, 38 points in order to get in at 5-4. We have seen it as low as 35, but we've also seen it as high as 40. So, you know 35 to 40 is what you need. Orangeville needs some help, but they got to take care of their own business. Likewise, East Dubuque has to do the same thing. They too have played AFC in Milledgeville. They'll benefit a little bit because they've played Aquin, but there again, they also have Galena on schedule. So both these teams are sitting in the same boat when it comes to where they need to go in order to get into the playoff picture. And right now, Week 5 is the perfect time for them to play. They're both 2-2. That 1 win will get you that 3rd win. Now you got to try and find 2 more to become playoff eligible. But realistically, I think both these teams need to finish at 6-3 in order to have a shot of making the playoffs. Unless Galena starts to pull some things around, or Milledgeville can grab some wins too. This game, though, I do like the Broncos in this matchup. Our bench warmers player of the week for Week 4. We had some good performances. These guys really stuck out the most in our minds. And in the north, Galena Winslow running back Sean Orreston. He had 15 carries for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, empowering Galena Winslow past Dakota 46-14. In the process, he also eclipsed the 3,500-yard mark for his career. He's at 3,523 yards currently. He's only 1,106 yards away from reaching Robbie-on Valentine's mark of 4,629, which is the NUIC conference record. Obviously, in order to get there, Sean's going to have to put some big games moving forward. But where we project Galena Winslow will be at the end of the season, he's got plenty of games to do so. So, great performance, Sean. Keep it up. Obviously, we're keeping track of what your performances are as you continue to climb up the NUIC rushing record list. In the south, Ty Steekel from Aquin.
And we talked about him a little bit, and he's playing a vital role for the Bulldogs.
Yes, definitely. Huge role, stepping in big time in Yount's absence. Ty came into this game 29 carries, 172 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So, excellent performance from Ty Steekel as they powered Aquin to a 39-7 win over East Dubuque. So, winners, stop into Benchwarmers in Freeport. Thanks to Eric White for his sponsorship with our Player of the Week. You'll receive a free extra large pizza and wings for your performances. Our NUIC Power 5 takes a little bit of a different look moving into Week 5, but not a whole lot. Obviously, still reigning at the top is Galena Winslow at number 1 with a 4-0 record after they beat Dakota 46-14. And they're going to play Stockton this week, renewing a rivalry there. At number 2 is Forreston, as they also are perfect at 4-0. They will play Milledgeville this week. Aquin is also at 4-0 as they get ready to play host to Amboy. Du-Pec remains at number 4 with a 3-1 mark after they beat Orangeville last week. the Rivermen get set to play Galena this week for their second consecutive homecoming, this time in Durand. And coming into our Power 5 for the first time this year are the Stockton Blackhawks at 3-1. Stockton obviously got a big win last week over Galena, 26-0. They will travel to Lena Winslow, they will host Lena Winslow this week. And their only blemish on the year is to our number 3 Aquin Bulldogs. So obviously a lot of good performances out of our top teams. One could even make the case that West Carroll's in there at 3-1 as well. But obviously we got a lot of things. We've got a lot of good teams here in the NUIC this year. And it's really going to be a lot of fun watching that playoff picture unfold, seeing how our Power 5 continues to move forward. Obviously, some good locks in that Power 5 will be some of the teams we've already mentioned, Lena Winslow, Forreston, and Aquin, thus far anyway, based off of what we see their schedule moving forward. So, in conclusion, obviously you saw a lot of things happening in Week 5. We have a lot of good games moving forward in Week 5. One of the big games across the state is going to be St. Teresa, who is undefeated, and they are playing Central A&M from Moweaqua. That will determine the Central Illinois Conference's conference champion for the year, determine who's going to be undefeated, either the Raiders or the Bulldogs. So that's a huge game down in the south part of the state, both for 1A and Class 2A, as Cam will be in 1A and St. Teresa in 2A. Obviously, we have a lot of good games here in the NUIC this week. A lot of more rivalry games that are going to be restored or renewed from yesteryear.
If anybody questions him on who he thinks are rivals, write me. We have a club and we have t-shirts.
She's still showing her youth. But anyway, a lot of good games to go out to. Sorry, you were saying something?
No. If I don't know, the kids don't know. They're dinosaur.
Anyway, a lot of good games this week. Don't forget, Orangeville plays East Dubuque at Saturday at home. So a 1 o'clock game in Orangeville. If you can get to that game, taking a doubleheader for the week, it's always a lot of fun. We're going to be in Orangeville this week. It'll be our only opportunity to be in Orangeville on a Saturday afternoon. So we're really excited for that as well. Get out to the game, support your team, support your communities. As always, root for the NUIC.